Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm Sheila Slick, your host, and today my special guest is Tom Healy. Tom is co-founder of People Ops 360, where he helps CEOs and business owners turn people challenges into performance breakthroughs by giving them the playbook of world-class HR and leadership systems. His people performance frameworks have been used by the U.S. Navy, Harvard Medical School, and multiple Fortune 500 companies, reaching more than 1 million learners. A serial entrepreneur and author of 5 books, Tom has delivered over 1,000 presentations that blend strategy, candor, and humor to make leadership practical, measurable, and human. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That's quite an impressive introduction. So, as a serial entrepreneur, I'd love to learn a little bit about your journey. What led you to start this particular company?
All right. So it all started when I was in the first grade. No, I'm just kidding. We won't go that far back, but I'll start with college. I was the heavily involved student leader. So got to college, didn't really know what I wanted to do, wasn't that involved in high school, but for whatever reason, I got super involved as a student leader, did a million different things, ran boards, got involved in associations, and that really sparked my interest in the idea of human potential and what people are capable of if they align their passions and their strengths. And that experience led me to graduate from college and write a book for college students. And so if this were happening now, I may have started a podcast or a YouTube channel or done something else, but 20 years ago, you wrote a book. So I sat there and I wrote a book called The Course They Forgot to Offer. And the idea was all the things that they didn't teach us in college that I wish they would have. And I didn't approach it as a know-it-all. I just said, look, this is what I wish I would have known. And then I interviewed probably 1,000 different people and said, what would you have done differently in your 20s? What do you wish you would have known? The answers were just incredibly vulnerable and powerful. And so I used those to shape the book. I profiled what successful people did. And then that book gave me the credibility to do what I really wanted to do, which was speak on college campuses. So I started speaking on college campuses. I was the leadership speaker. They'd bring me in for an orientation or for a leadership conference and pack the auditorium. And I would talk about how to reach your potential. And based on that work, companies started asking me, hey, Tom, we're having trouble with our younger talent. We're not getting the most out of them. And it might be a recruitment problem. It might be a training problem. It might be a retention problem, but something's broken here. And so I started working with companies on their, I'd call it human capital strategies, right? How do we put the right people in the right seats and get them to succeed and set them up for success and keep them here for many, many years? And so in my 20s, that was the work I was doing, college campuses and with companies, and literally crisscrossing the United States on flights, over 125 nights of business travel. And as you can probably imagine, and maybe I know some people love that, I didn't. I got burnt out. I hit a wall. It was lonely. It was isolating. It was kind of depressing. And I just thought, I can't keep doing this. So over the course of about 12 months, I transitioned the work I was doing, the relationships I had from in-person brick and mortar speaking, consulting workshops to be online learning. And so for 12 years or so now, I've been in the online learning space of, without physically being in an office or on a college campus, how do I transfer knowledge? And it's led to building a lot of coursework. It's led to going into companies and nonprofits and trade associations and building out internal knowledge centers. And then more recently, that evolved into providing what we now call People Ops 360, which is essentially giving a company typically between about 15 to 100 employees with access to a Fortune 1000 HR department. So how do you get the recruiting resources and the onboarding resources and the payroll resources of a Fortune 1000 company when you may not even be able to hire one full-time person to do that? So that's kind of the journey. And obviously there's a lot of little wins and losses over those 20 years, but that's how I got to where I am now.
Well, that's very impressive and so young. You seemed right on ball, and that's very impressive to think how you even published the book on what I wish they would have taught in college or what I didn't learn in
Yeah.
college. And so,
And, you know, I'm proud of that book because if you open it up now, almost 20 years later, I still think it holds up. I mean, the advice still holds true. You know, do something that you're passionate about, focus on your strengths, pick the right place to live, leverage your network, be a nice person, organize your personal finances appropriately. I mean, all these things still need to be taught, and certainly there's still issues with all of them with today's younger people and younger workforce.
so you can always update it if it wasn't. It just sounds evergreen after hearing your description about the book.
What's funny, I would have never thought it was evergreen, but then every once in a while I'll see it sitting around and I'll just open up a page and start reading. It really is. I mean, even the parts about LinkedIn and leveraging your network, well, no one else has come along to knock LinkedIn off, so it's still relevant, which is fun.
Oh, I love that. So why do you believe that most CEOs don't have a real people strategy, and how does that hold their business back?
So over the last few years, I've come to the realization, first of all, and maybe I'm slow and it took me too long to figure this out, but the plumbing company's core competency is not HR and human capital strategies, and it's not training and it's not recruiting. The software company, the bakery, the pizza shop, they're really good at what they're really good at, but they probably didn't start a multiple location pizza chain because they had a strong HR background and loved building, training, and onboarding and recruiting the right people, right? They probably did it because they were really good at baking pizzas and people said, you should open up your own shop, right? So it's the realization that it's just not a core competency. And what maybe I think is common sense around developing people and training people and setting people up for success and evaluating if someone is the right fit for your organization. Those things I may think, well, it's simple, but I've been doing this for 20 years. So that's the first thing, is the realization that it's not most organizations' core competency. The other thing is, and I want to try to be polite in how I say this, but in my experience and working with hundreds and hundreds of companies and CEOs, and I believe most companies do not properly value their workforce and understand the importance that people play in their business. So you can go to the log cabin in December, build out the strategy for the organization, fill the walls with all the X's and O's and lofty goals and strategy and pricing and all that fun stuff. But if you don't have really, really good people that are motivated and well trained and have the resources to do their job and are financially motivated to do that job and have the skill set to do that job, your strategy will not get executed. And I don't believe CEOs and leaders in organizations understand how important people are. And so what happens is, you can do a lot of things right. You can have a great product. You can do incredible marketing. You can position it really well. But if you don't have the people to sell it, to service it, to be customer facing. They're not getting along. They're not working well. You don't have managers holding people accountable. It all falls apart. And then what happens is the CEO goes, well, it must just be a downtime in our industry. It must be our competitor. Our pricing must be wrong. And not that those things can't be factors, but so often it's you understand that what you're trying to build is an excellent company. And you have very, very mediocre people executing that. It's not going to happen. Or they're really good people that are high potential, but you have not set them up for success. So that's typically what I see.
So, how do you feel in today's day and age where AI is taking on some of these human positions? Because I think it's more important than ever, the message that you just shared. Because even if you have the best software, out there, that lack of that human connection leads to frustration and perhaps even boycott the company because of the lack of the person and that customer service, right? Being able to get hold of a human rather than filling out a form where it's going to revise by perhaps even a different agent, AI agent.
Yeah, and I'll preface this by saying I'm all in on AI. I'm one of those people that thinks it's going to disrupt every industry, every sector. It's going to change the makeup of the workforce. It's going to change the work that people do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, it's not. I think a lot of people oversimplify this and frankly are wrong when they say AI will do what people do now and people will not be needed. I disagree with that premise. What I do think is your organization is going to need people that can leverage AI, that can use AI tools, that are willing to work themselves out of their current job by leveraging AI so that they can create a new and more impactful job for themselves. So that's if I were running a company right now that had 50 employees, I'd be thinking, how do I get each of them using AI, leveraging AI, solving problems through AI, because if they do that, then our company functions better. What I do see is I see companies that say, we're not using AI, do not use it, we're putting a ban on it. If we catch you using it, you're fired. I disagree with that approach. Um, the other thing I see is I see companies that have created so much fear in their people that they're afraid to use AI or they're afraid to speak up about using AI because they fear that they're going to lose their job. So, as a leader in an organization, my message would be use AI, solve problems through AI. Once you do, tell us what you've done, and we'll find more work for you to do. We'll find bigger problems for you to solve. The other thing, and I just posted about this, I think today on LinkedIn, was if I were interviewing people, I would be asking, how are you currently using AI in your personal and professional life? And then I'd stop. I wouldn't lead the witness. I wouldn't ask any follow-up questions. I wouldn't give examples because I want to hire people that are already using these tools and already thinking about how AI can help do their job better, how they can leverage AI to add more value to an organization. So, and I'm not saying any of what I just said is right, but that's my perspective on it. And I think a lot of companies are ignoring it, thinking it's a fad, telling their people not to do it, creating fear inside the organization that people are going to lose their jobs. And I don't think any of that's healthy or productive.
Well, you've got me here nodding, so I'm all on board with your perspective. That was perfectly said. I stand by that. So, what is one simple change that a CEO could do this week to see immediate improvement in their or their team's performance?
I am shocked continually every single week at how many companies out there do not have a mechanism for measuring the performance of their people. I just can't believe it. Every person inside an organization that's collecting a paycheck should have their performance measured. There should be a scorecard. When that doesn't happen, what do you think happens to people? They don't try as hard. They aren't as engaged. They do the bare minimum. People are smart. They know what they can get away with. They know which organizations, I call it stealing a paycheck, but they can steal a paycheck in for many, many years, and they can hide out because nobody holds them accountable. Nobody measures their performance. They convince other people in the organization that it's impossible to measure what they do. Obviously, we know how to measure salespeople, and so most companies are able to do that. It's the other positions. You should be able to measure in a very objective way how well the receptionist is doing, how well the customer service people are doing, how well your managers are performing, how well marketing is performing. Every role inside the organization, every department inside the organization should have specific metrics. So what I see so often is that does not exist. So what happens? Well, performance is mediocre instead of excellent. People hide out for years inside a company. Another big one that I talk to companies a lot about because I know it's happening is conflict. And think about this. So you're managing me, and my role does not have any performance metrics. But you as my manager know that I'm doing the bare minimum. I'm not performing at a high level. Without metrics, how do you tell me that? Well, you say, Tom, you're not doing a great job, or Tom, you should be doing better, or Tom, you're slipping. You came in hot a year ago, but you've faded away. What am I going to say back to you? I'm going to say, no, that's not true. I'm working hard. I work harder than anyone else around here. And now we're having what I'll call a subjective conversation. And you as the manager are absolutely set up to fail because you have to tell me without any metrics or KPIs or any data that I'm not doing a good job. And of course, I'm going to get defensive and tell you that you're wrong. Now you and I don't get along. So what happens? Maybe you quit. Maybe I quit. Maybe we both start performing at a low level. Maybe I go tell someone else in the company about how lousy of a manager you are. And then guess what happens? Our culture erodes and people don't want to come to work and they leave the company or they're short with a customer because they're in a bad mood. And the whole thing falls apart, all because we haven't said every single role in our company has specific things that we measure them with. And furthermore, I'm a firm believer that if you want to have a great company, you need people performing at a high level. I also believe that you should incentivize people based on performance. But if you don't have performance metrics, then all you can do is hand out a salary and hope they work hard. And I'm a proponent of pay more for high quality people. I once asked someone that I trust that's worked in HR for decades. And I said to her, I said, a high performing person, what are they worth to a company? And as an example, tell me that they're worth twice as much as a low performer. And her response without hesitation is, look, Tom, I know the exact answer because I've run this at multiple companies. A high performing person is worth 6 times what a low performing person is. So why wouldn't you just pay someone double and have less people? But you can't do that experiment unless you know what a high performer is and you know how to measure it. Otherwise, you're managing with your eyes. And this is where people got in so much trouble during COVID and you've probably heard some version of this before, but I don't know what my people are doing. I can't see them. Now, the irony of it is when you did see them, you thought just because they had their butt sitting in a desk in a cubicle that they were working. And they could have been online shopping. They could have been texting with their friends. They could have been clicking the mouse and pretending to be working. But because you could see them, you thought they were a high performer. They came in early. They stayed late. They have to be a high performer. And then when COVID happened and people were working remotely, CEOs, especially older ones, just were in a tizzy because, well, now I don't know if they're working. And what do you think my response was to them? And I'm tying this all together with saying you need performance metrics, because you should know in real time whether your people are in the office or 2,000 miles away, who's performing, who's crushing it, who's stealing a paycheck. And if you don't have that data readily available to you and you don't have those performance metrics, then you really don't know what's going on in your organization.
So now we're going to talk about the how, right? We understand the importance of it, which I think you made a great point. So how does People Ops 360 support that? Is it software? Is it a custom solution that you offer?
Yeah, so we're white glove HR services, and what I mean by that is we give people that potentially are interested in our services what we call the sushi menu. And here's everything that we can do from a people operations standpoint. And it's everything from payroll and recruiting all the way through building a custom learning management system for your organization. Here's everything we can do. And then we just ask, what do you want us to do? And it may be a couple things, it may be everything. And then we just develop a month to month retainer to do all those services. And knock on wood, those relationships last for years because we're good at what we do. We're cheaper than full time people, we're better than them, and we are able to provide expertise in a number of different areas versus hiring someone that inevitably is good at some things and has never done other things. So that's our approach. And then getting in the weeds as much as we need to. You know, what can we do to add value to what we call the employee life cycle? Everything from posting that job to offboarding someone and hoping that they still love your company even though it's no longer a good fit. So we're here to help with whatever area of that we can. And as you know, every organization needs different things. And the idea of a one size fits all, it wouldn't do right by the companies we work with.
Right, because they all have different types of roles that you would have different metrics that you would share. So does this include software? Is that one of your sushi service
Yeah,
menu items?
there's two things that happen. One is an organization says, "We already have our tech stack and we love it. We have a great training platform, a great applicant tracking system, our HRIS is phenomenal. We're good." Great. Then our team will jump on there, we'll operate in those systems. We're already familiar with them. It's not a big deal. The other scenario is Mary's been doing this with a pencil and a legal pad for 50 years now, and we have no technology. We don't leverage AI. We do everything by hand. Please build us a tech stack, modernize our organization. You know, we love those because we can put the right systems and right software in place. I've been around the software. I mean, I started building online learning about 12 years ago, and it's just phenomenal where software has gone in terms of it being cheap, it being really, really good, it being easy to use. With the right software solutions, you can gain back so much time and eliminate so many headaches. But you have to know the right tools. You have to make sure they talk to each other. So we definitely add a lot of value in that area.
So where can they find more information or connect with you?
Tom at peopleops360.com. I don't sell, I don't convince, I don't manipulate, I just have conversations. So I'm I am happy to have a conversation with anyone that thinks we may be able to help. It's a very casual discovery conversation, whether we work together or not. My goal in those 30 minutes is to give you some ideas that'll be useful. So I am always happy to talk to anyone. Tom at peopleops360.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'd say every day, but it's more like every hour. I kind of live on there, and but would love to connect with people on there as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Tom.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me on, and I appreciate the thoughtful questions. This was a lot of fun.
And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. Until next time.